recording. Parsec game window row 1 column 2. Parsec game window. Parsec game window. Exit NVDA dialog. What would you like to do? Combo box exit. Parsec game window.
Hello everyone. I am Zach Klein, and I am operating under the assumption that this is live. Just give me a few moments here to get started, and I will be happy to walk you through Stellaris a bit and show you what's going on.
Parsec game window. No reading. No objects. Option 23. Parsec game window. Option 20. Parsec game window.
Hold on.
No objects. Desktop window. Option 64. Option 20. Parsec row 1 column 2. Clickable manage. Clickable add more link. Play button. Parsec game window. New notification. Parsec game window. Parsec game window. No previous renew mode. No object. Desktop window. Unknown. Option 20. Parsec game window. Parsec game window. No objects. Desktop unknown.
Give me a
No
moment.
previous renew
Parsec is being
No previous unknown.
difficult.
Blank.
It's
No
the
objects. Desktop unknown.
program
Parsec game
I
window.
use to do cloud
Maxima.
gaming, theoretically.
Parsec window.
Most of the time it works.
No previous renew. Overview list. Total 2 of 11.
There we go. Okay, so I guess a bit about me. I am Zach Klein, and I have been a fan of strategy games and similar things for as long as I could remember. Stellaris and Paradox games in general are relatively new to me, but I am enjoying the fact that they are surprisingly playable as someone who is totally blind, and I've been blind since birth. For anyone who doesn't know, Stellaris is basically what's called a 4X game, which is expand, exploit, or explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. Excuse me. And it's basically all about guiding a civilization through 500-ish years of history in space. And since science fiction has always been a favorite genre of mine, it's pretty awesome. And it just so happens that with some help, this game and other Paradox games are pretty playable as a totally blind person, with a few limitations that I have not yet figured out solutions for. But I'm going to be talking all about that. So, real quick, I'm going to start the game. Stellaris on the desktop. And the program that you might be hearing in the background is called NVDA, Non-Visual Desktop Access. It is what is called a screen reader, and it basically does what the name sounds like and reads a lot of game content on the screen. Not just it doesn't literally read everything on the screen, but it does a pretty good job of reading most things. For the sake of viewers, I'm going to go ahead and start the gameplay so that the music can stop, since I didn't find a way to stop the launcher, or I did not stop the launcher music. That was my mistake. So, hold on a second. Whoops, I forgot I have to set the NVDA settings.
NVDA settings. General property. Continue array. Show exit. Play sounds. Login level. Automatic. Use NVDA. Use currently save. Automatically. Notify for allow the NVDA. OK button. Allow button. Categories. List. General 1 of 14. Speech 2 of 14. Keyboard property page. Keyboard layout. Desktop. Speak into. Allow him. Beep it. Speak. Play sounds. Handle keys. OK button. Parsec game window.
All right.
No mouse positions for Parsec.
Oh, hold on.
No previous renew mode. Stellaris. Caps lock off. No mouse positions for Parsec.
Oh.
Exit NVDA dialog. What would you like to do? Combo box. Parsec game window. Exit NVDA dialog. Parsec game window. Stellaris.
Sorry for the confusion. What's going on here is that I'm running NVDA twice because I'm connecting to a cloud machine using NVDA on a laptop. So I was getting a little confused why NVDA was responding in one case but not the other.
No
but
no
we'll get that sorted.
Mouse position for Stellaris dialog. Planetary districts. Position X. Replay. Position X 1000. Stellaris. Left click.
All right. For anyone interested, basically what I have is I have a program called Golden Cursor, which is basically an add-on for NVDA that lets me move the mouse to arbitrary positions on the screen and memorize, basically bookmark those positions for later use. It's very handy for situations like this because the game generally puts a lot of information in the same spot on screen. So I will demonstrate how that all works. Basically, the only reason I'm able to play this game or any other Paradox game is that A, NVDA offers what's an OCR, optical character recognition feature. B, the games put a lot of information in predictable places. And C, I have a way to travel to those places on demand. Without one of these options, it would be impossible to get anything done. By the way, I did want to mention that in case anyone wants to ask me questions, I am able to answer them. I have a friend who has kindly offered to relay chat messages to me. So, if anyone wants to ask me questions live, I'm more than happy to oblige. For the time being, though, I'm going to hit N, which will start a new game. For the sake of ease, I'm going to use one of the pre-generated races because I haven't yet figured out how to generate my own in an accessible way. I'm sure it's possible, it's just kind of tedious, and I was having far too much fun actually playing with pre-generated ones. So I'm going to use the NVDA OCR command. There we go. It says select empire. United Nations of Earth. I'm using an NVDA command to read through the screen. Gonna select these guys, just because I can. And then go down to the bottom and hit. No, I'm just going down to the bottom just to prove that it does read. For future reference, I could have just hit a command to reach me to the bottom directly. Alright, that's enough. So, select, which I will do. And then here we are. Basically, what I do is I use OCR to read the screen. I use an NVDA command to select. Basically, I use an NVDA command to move the mouse to the line that I'm reading, and then I click. And this suffices for about 90% of my interactions with the game. The remaining 10% are what I'm going to be talking about, I think, because the process is pretty similar across the whole thing. So I've got that selected. Now, that's one thing about OCR. The one thing about OCR is that it does not automatically update whenever the screen changes. So in addition to occasionally just being nonsensical, as you'll see, sometimes it just doesn't produce any... sometimes it just doesn't notify me when anything new happens, so I have to rescan the screen, which in itself doesn't take a lot, but... it doesn't take a lot of time, but just is tedious sometimes, so... I know for a fact that this screen is the opening, opener, so... Oh, not the opener. Not the opener, the game settings screen. This is one where I need some accessibility help, theoretically, because NVDA doesn't always read all these settings, but for now, let's just go with the defaults. Okay. Now, opening screen.
Already in the content recognition with setup recognizing 1 and 1, 1 and 2 and 1, 1, 0 plus 0, 30, 21, 3/2 plus 200 post. United Government ruler, CC, capital F's.
Okay, this is the opening screen. First main screen of the game, I guess I should say. Begin.
Good day, Madam President. I am Veer, A prototype synthetic intelligence. My job is to offer advice and assistance as we seek our destiny among the stars.
All right, for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to just go ahead and turn that to tips only, because oh, I guess it doesn't matter, but I can do a better demo than the tutorial can. So
Very well. I will provide tips explaining only basic functions and tools as you explore them.
alrighty, enough of you. Now, the basic pattern here is the game screen is laid out in a fairly predictable way with the system map in the middle, and other screens, kind of other controls and indicators off to the side. Now, one thing that I've done is, with some sighted help, I've gone through and added bookmarks to important places. Like, for example, I'll show you, I can read, for instance, my energy credit reserve with this.
Map positions for Stellaris now. Change map positions. List the engine. Position X 1000 lane. Position X 9 energy credits. Position X
Energy credits.
Stellaris.
So I move them. I hit control. I hit an NVDA command and then move the mouse to that spot. I don't know if it shows up that way visually, but audibly it's very clear that that's what happened. And then I hit OCR. And there we go.
100/57. Monthly gain plus 4.36. Reviews plus 5,089.
Now, this is a case where the OCR is obviously not reading everything, because 5089 is not.
Plus 518 plus 5 0 8 9 8 2000. Train 7.45. Stations 1,344.
This is a case, obviously, where the OCR is not reading quite as reliably as it could be, since I know for a fact that these credits are not in such high numbers, but I can generally kind of guess that there's a decimal point in there somewhere. Now, I should point out that theoretically it's possible to have the screen reader talk directly to the game, or I guess vice versa, and if that happens, then obviously OCR typos are not an issue. That's my ultimate hope, is that the games will speak to each other, and the programs will speak to each other, and this will not become an issue. But for now, let's read.
Consume. Colon minus 46.52. Ships 300 stations. 2 point bases. 5 pavilions. 1,500. Districts 6.00. Stellaris.
There we go. So that just is the demonstration that the bookmarks feature does what it's supposed to. Let's see. Now, I am going to just quickly demonstrate how I can use some of the interface. Let's see. The situation log is a great place to start with. F2 is the keyboard command. Now, in general, the way that this works, the more keyboard commands, the better, because you'll find that there are lots of keyboard commands that do a great deal of job, do a great job in this game, but there are a few strange omissions, as you'll see. Just checking the chat in case there is anything. Anyway, let me hit F2.
The situation log displays a list of all currently available special projects, archaeology sites, and various other points of interest. New items will likely appear as we are exploring the galaxy.
Okay, thank you. Now, just to review the screen.
1,662, 1,200, 100, 100, 100, 0 plus 0 plus 13, 20, 1, reach 210 apples, energy credits. So monthly based train station on consume current ship stations, 2
that tooltip is still up, I didn't realize it. Oh well.
Buildings, districts, city leaders, energy current races, you can gain more and 1 column 2, you face a selling minor, you under 1 elected on a demanding stations in orbit around suitable planetoids. You under 1 elected on a platform of increasing a mineral. Demanding FF unit in max 1000. The situation laser list of all. The situation currently available special projects. Archaeology sites made in Trevi. Don't show must. Don't show again.
Okay, don't show that again, tutorial.
Don't show again. Stellaris, recognizing.
But basically, this screen has a couple tabs, and the important thing to realize here is that NVDA reads all this relatively well, with a few obvious typo type exceptions, and there are no real bookmarks or anything necessary to have this be read. An area where bookmarks are at least somewhat useful is in the technology screen. I happen to know for a fact that we were able to research some technologies at the start of this game, so I'm going to use another bookmark to click on the little alert flag at the top of the screen.
Position for Stellaris. First alert. Position X. 3 on Stellaris. Left click.
Whoops. Had to close the log first. There we go.
Left
The
click.
technology screen is where we will begin our research efforts.
There we go.
Technologies are categorized into 3 different fields, with each field typically having 3 available research options.
There is supposed to be a bookmark for the top technology, but that does not currently seem to be behaving. So I'm currently looking at, presumably, at the physics screen, which I'll confirm.
Recognizing with 1 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 1 and 1 research 0 plus 0 30 20 1 3 technology 2 and post technology 1 with value and effort 0 physics with select text select research research whenever we start to 3 Xeon unlocks 3 module energy credits from technicity 3 module unlocks component fusion reactor Xeon S I O.
Now, I'm going to go ahead and research fusion reactors, but I know that the other technologies are in a kind of a column down the screen because I've had some cited help explaining this layout. So,
left click.
There we go. Now, once again, the same kind of technique of read the screen, use NVDA to explore the screen, and then click on a bit of text that the screen exposes generally works here. Where it fails is on the galaxy map. Less so the system map, but particularly the galaxy map, just because that's such an obviously graphical thing. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. Let's take a look at the galaxy map.
Recognizing 1 and 1 and 2 and 1 1 and 1 research 0 0 plus defect 13 20 for 1 3 technology 200 tables technology physics recognizing 1 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 1 and 0 1 and 0 plus 0 1 first 13 1 20 Jupiter 1 3 1 2 palace 200 tables military points command limit usage.
Hold on.
Recognizing 1 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 0 plus 0 30 20 1 3 200 tables unite independent outliner.
Oh.
Sectors. Stellaris.
Outliner's up. I'll close that.
It's
a less cluttered display. Okay, here's the galaxy map. Now, the thing about this is that it can be zoomed to a variety of levels, but I struggle with actually finding other systems, particularly if they're unknown systems. Let me just show you what I can see on this screen, and then I will show you where I struggle. Okay, this is the statistics for the Sol system. I'm going to go ahead and explore. Basically, what I have here is I have NVDA's golden cursor also has the ability to move the mouse X number of pixels in any given direction, kind of up, down, left, right. And that's fine, except obviously on a screen like this, where things are in sort of arbitrary positions. So, let me see what I can find out. 704. I have it set to 15 pixels per hop. It used to be 5 pixels per hop, but that was a lot more tedious than I wanted, even for a slow-paced game. So, I just moved up and to the right a bit to see what I can see. Oh, so I'm still on the Sol tooltip.
764. Recognizing results document. Stellaris. Recognizing 1 and 1 2 1 1 0 plus 0 30 1 3 2 and Sol. Post. Close galaxy united.
Okay, now clearly, I am on a I would presume, blank spot on the map. There's no tooltip. There's no, if there is a tooltip, I can't tell what it is. But the problem is, I know that there are systems here, but I don't know where they are. I'm going to just try going to the right. I seem to accidentally keep pulling up the pause menu. That's unintentional. But anyway.
1 and 0 plus 0 30 when 1 3 2 and pause. Pause. Close color United Independent. Bottom
Yeah,
independent.
see?
Stellaris.
The problem is that the systems are scattered at arbitrary points. And when you get down to it, all the galaxy map is at bottom is a bunch of like points on a grid, essentially, or even not even that, just like path, almost a maze-like kind of configuration of points. But I can't see any of those connections because obviously NVDA doesn't pick up on the hyperlane graphics, and even if it did, it doesn't have a way to follow them. So what I really would need, ideally, would be some kind of keyboard commands to just explore the map lane by lane or system by system. Or commands in the game console to say, okay, what maps are here? What lanes are here? What system does this link to? Etc. Now, I have previously managed to do surveying, colonizing, and a few other things, so it's not impossible to continue, but it is just tedious, especially when you're doing the whole exploration of when you're navigating through systems like this at the start of a game. People have suggested that I should use a mod to enable auto exploration from the beginning, and I have already got one. I don't think it's enabled right now for reasons, but I got it. Mostly, I just want to highlight that if with relatively few simple changes, this could be a lot more pleasant than it already is. I mean, this could be a lot more pleasant than it is right now. I am going to go ahead and see if I can try and start a survey, just because, just to give me something to respond to.
Recognizing result document. Stellaris. Recognize 1 and 2 1 1 1 0 plus 0 13 20 1 3 2 and post. Post. Close color Unit. Bottom independent Unit. Close post. Post.
Now, theoretically, it is possible to play with the system map instead. That is, there are hyperlane connections drawn on the system map, but the problem is that I can't see them reliably because the system map scrolls. And not only does it scroll, but it also zooms. So bookmarks and things I try to set are confusing at best, if not outright destroyed by the map scrolling. They're relatively speaking, they're small compared to the size of the system map. So that's why I'm basically stuck here on a semi-useless screen.
600, 387, 700, 300, already in the console. Record now 1 1 2 1 1 1 0 plus 0 30 20 1 3 20.
Okay, fleets.
300 recognizing result 1 1 2 1 1 0 plus 0 3 200 post United Independent post close galaxy map Stellaris 300 700 recognizing 100 1 2 1 1 0 plus 0 30 independent 1 3 3 200 post close galaxy map bottom close Stellaris 297 recognizing 100 1 2 1 1 0 plus 0 30 20 United Independent 1 3 200 post close bottom close galaxy map. And written already in the content close bottom close galaxy record 1 1 2 1 1 0 plus 0 1 3 2 post United Independent post close bottom.
All right, I can't be bothered to start surveying, but let me just point out that once I do, 98, I'd say 95 to 97% of what I've done, otherwise, or of other stuff in this game is accessible, if not fun, at the moment, just because of the kind of tediousness that goes with OCR. But I'd like to point out that with a few changes, just like talking directly to the screen reader or adding a few more keyboard shortcuts, things could be almost perfect. If I unpause this game, theoretically at some point I'm going to get events coming. And fortunately this game is auto set to pause on events, which is very helpful, but it would still be nice if they were automatically read to me so I didn't have to use OCR. That's a fairly, in the grand scheme of things, trivial to do, I should hope. I'm not familiar with the game's code base, but compared to changing the AI or whatever, I would assume it's a fairly trivial thing to do. That is, I mean, honestly, about it. The rest of the game is just kind of variations on these same themes of bookmarking places of interest and exploring screens and getting a sense of what's where. It's a little tedious at times, as you've seen, but I do have fun. It may not be fun in the same way that sighted people have fun, but still. If anyone is interested, I'm more than happy to answer questions or offer offer more demonstration or explain my setup here, because this has taken less time than I anticipated, especially compared to the stream I was doing for Europa Universalis. So I'll throw the floor open to questions if anyone's here, and if not, I will drop off in, I guess, 5 minutes or so.
Record now increase 1 and 200 plus 10.
All right, no questions? No questions. I will, I'll call it then. I hope everyone has a good night, and I will post this on YouTube and be here if anyone else has anything. So I will call it for now because I've demonstrated all I really wanted to. So thank you all, if anyone actually saw this, and have a good night.
Stellaris now. Navigation and Stellaris now with Stellaris 1 column 2. Stellaris now with number 151 2.3.3 attached.
Excuse me. That was...
Loading NVDA, please wait. 64. Studio mode. Stop recording. Stop streaming. Not check. Stop in stream. Stop streaming. Stop recording.